So we just got back from a beautiful day spent at Summer Game Fest Play Days, whatever they call it, where media and press get the chance to play games early and see some behind the scenes looks at some upcoming games. And there were some really cool things. Some I'm allowed to talk about, some I can't talk about yet, but you better believe the second I get the chance to, I'm going to spill the beans, because there's all sorts of tea, all sorts of fun little stuff. Ran into like Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond. That was cool. Met Jake Baldino, lovely fella. Nakey Jakey was there. All the people, all the guys were there. But what I wanted to talk about in this one was Phantom Blade Zero. Sorry, I'm getting texted. So I got to enjoy roughly 30-minute demo. At least that's what it was supposed to be. More on that in a second. But I got to enjoy a nice demo of Phantom Blade Zero, where we got to do a tutorial section, and then there were 3 bosses that occurred pretty much back to back after that. And the game is not at all what I thought it was going to be. It's very good and it's fun, but I don't think it's the kind of game a lot of people think it is. You see, looking at the gameplay and the trailers and stuff, even the really good trailer that they finished the Summer Game Fest live show with, it kind of looks like a Soulsborne game or like a Souls-like, and while that's a compliment, that's a very good thing, that's not how the game plays at all. In fact, when I sat down on the couch and right next to me was one of the devs, they said to me, this is not going to be played like a Souls-like you might have played before. It plays much more like a Devil May Cry. It's much more about combos and parries and careful movement and stuff, but it's not really going to play like your traditional Souls-like game. And the second I picked up the controller and started engaging with the tutorial, I was like, oh, I understand what he's saying. This plays very, very differently. You see, after the first tutorial boss, we went on and fought Taisha the Frenzy. There's a couple of clips of each of these bosses. I think one of them we don't have any footage of, even in the trailers. We weren't allowed to capture any footage or B-roll. We just got this footage that you're seeing on screen. And it's workable, but just you'll need to fill in some of the blanks with your imagination as I describe it. But this guy had a battle axe, pretty straightforward, and is just sort of meant to teach you the basics of prioritizing aggression. That's your main bread and butter with this game, it seems. There's all sorts of cool things you can do where you chain these different multi-combo attacks together, and you do that by kind of draining what is this game's version of like stamina almost. It's interesting, but basically you chain all these attacks together with one weapon. It'll sort of drain your stamina, and then you swap weapons by hitting left on the D-pad. It'll swap to a different weapon, and you can continue the chain and combo because that weapon has effectively a separate stamina bar than the first weapon. So by swapping between weapons, you can just take a boss from full health down to 0 without breaking a sweat or without having to pause your attacks at all. So I fully expect this is one of those games where some people are going to be so stupid good at it, it makes it look like the game is just broken, while others might struggle a lot. And it's because once the game clicks for you, it becomes quite easy. And speaking of easy, this was way easier than I thought it would be. And it's not to say like, I think the game could be difficult if you're really good at like Sekiro, or maybe you're hyper specialized in Elden Ring or something like that. But if you're just like some dumbass like me that just plays these games kind of casually, I think you're gonna have an easier time swapping into it, because you just have to flip that switch in your brain and not think of it like a Souls-like game, because it's, again, much more about combos. When you hit square, square, triangle, triangle, square, it will play out a series of animations of him swinging the sword in various ways, and that will play out even after you press the buttons, take your finger off of the button, it will still continue playing out that series of animations and that combo that you did. So there's a lot of times where you'll run right up to a boss and do square, square, triangle, and then you take your finger off, and it's another 3/4 of a second, full second of animations playing out, dealing damage and everything, even after you've removed your finger from that button. So very different. You have to be very methodical with how you fight some of these bosses and characters, and it is built to punish button mashers, to be very, very clear. If you are a button masher, you will have a very bad time with this game. But beyond that, once it clicks for you and you kind of get what they're going for, and you understand, okay, I can do this long chain of attacks as a combo, and then swap weapons and do another chain combo, and then maybe pull out my special thing that's kind of like a flamethrower, and I can do that and then swap back to the other weapon that's now recharged its stamina, for lack of a better term, and then you just continue on the cycle. It will click and you'll have a pretty easy time with it. And that kind of leads me into my overall experience with it, which was that I was able to get through the tutorial boss, the first boss, and then the second boss without really skipping a beat. And then the game crashed, which happens at preview events. It's not like the world's ending. It's not a really bad thing. The game ran beautifully other than that one crash, which apparently was just my luck. It was the first crash of the day that they had. They were very surprised to see it. So I guess I just have the magic touch. But after we rebooted it, I was able to go through those bosses again and then fight the final boss. And we still had like 8 or 9 minutes left in our 30-minute window. So I don't know if it just like clicked for me and this is one of those weird games that I'm just strangely good at, or if it's actually the case that it's not that challenging, or maybe it's a little bit of both. But I was surprised that it was not as difficult as I was braced for it to be, especially looking at the trailers and the crazy combat and parries and stuff. I was braced for it to be painful to do this, and I was ready for everybody to be looking over my shoulder and like laughing at how bad I was at the game. But no, it actually was pretty fluid. It felt good to play. It felt fair. And like I said, it was really polished and well refined. There weren't any frame drops. It ran at a locked frame rate the whole time. It was just really, really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And considering that this game, like a week ago, people were saying looked fake, and then to see it played now and actually be able to do multiple boss fights and get my hands on it, I'm like, okay, this is actually one of the biggest turnarounds for any game I can think of in recent memory. Like when they came out at Summer Game Fest and they were like, yep, everything you're about to see in this trailer is actual gameplay, actual animations and combat. None of this is faked. I think that was a smart move, because the game actually does play like that. What I will say is the cool like dual parry animation that they did in that first trailer, however long ago that was, where like the guy sticks his foot out and spins around, stabs, and then flips around like a ballerina. That I never saw. I did fight in the first boss fight. There's like the arena, but in order to fight the boss, you have to clear some little fodder, lower level enemies. And to do that, like, I was hoping to get the chance to do some of those really cool, like, spinny, floaty animations and parries and finishers and stuff. And there really is just not much of that in here that I saw. It seemed like that was maybe a rare occurrence that you can sometimes see, but I didn't see it in the whole demo I did. Beyond that, the coolest boss was boss 4, who in our notes we called Big Meat Helmet Boy. And it's because basically he has this cool weapon where it's almost like a huge bell, but it has blades inside of it. And some bosses in this game have the ability to one-shot you. And the first time I walked into the arena, I was just looking at how cool he appeared, and he threw his weapon up and it landed square on the character's head, and the blade spun out and it just straight up decapitated the player character. It was like, I'm not even mad. That was cool. That was pretty wild. So after that, we did the boss fight. And again, it wasn't particularly challenging or crazy, but it's one of those weird games where it looks way harder than at least I feel that it is. We were watching other creators and other media play these same boss fights before I sat down to do it. And it looks way more intimidating, way more challenging than it actually is in practice. I didn't die to any of the bosses more than once. And like I said, the last boss, it was because we just walked into the arena and then he has a move that can just one-shot you. So there was that. But all told, like, it just flowed really well and I was thoroughly impressed. And it's, again, a game that none of us really, it sounds dismissive, but like we didn't really take that seriously a week ago because it looked like one of those scripted gameplay sequences we see in games every once in a while where it's not really real, it's carefully orchestrated to appear a certain way, and that's about it. But it actually does play very, very well. It plays very well. I was thoroughly impressed. The staff and devs that were there were very knowledgeable and excited to share their game with everybody. And like straight up, when somebody would beat the boss or do something really cool that they hadn't seen happen before, they would like cheer for you, and everybody in the booth would be like, yeah, that was awesome. It was actually pretty cool. And it was just nice to see a group of very passionate people sharing something they were making and that they were very proud of. And having tried it, I can say I get why they're proud of it, and they should be, because I think that's going to be one to keep an eye on. You know, when I first saw it, I was like, it looks too good to be true. And now that I've actually played it, you know, I think it's going to be one to keep an eye on for sure, but not for the reasons I thought of, not for the reasons I thought it would be one to keep an eye on initially. I thought it was going to be one to keep an eye on initially because it was too good to be true, and maybe they were over-promising and couldn't possibly deliver on that. And now that I've played it, it's not as flashy as that first trailer made it out to be, but the combat is solid, the boss fights are fun, and it manages to dodge the trap and pitfall that a lot of Souls-like inspired games kind of fall into, and that is that they are so focused on difficulty that it can sometimes remove some of the fun. And in this case, it just feels like it's a game that's chasing the fun factor and how good it feels to play. And even if that means some of the encounters are going to be easier once you figure out how it works, that's fine. As long as you're having fun, who cares? And that's kind of precisely what I would like to see. So it's going to be one to keep an eye on, and I'm excited to see more of it whenever I get another chance. So happy to report, Phantom Blade Zero. I think it's a keeper. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot else to say right now. We did see a bunch of other stuff today. Again, some stuff I just can't share. I'll post like a comprehensive Summer Game Fest video. Got to try Stalker 2, some other stuff like that, and I have thoughts. And you better believe I'll be sharing all of that. So if you want to be notified when those videos go up, make sure to hit subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe share this with a friend if they were interested in Phantom Blade Zero, and now you can tell them that it is as good as it looks. So with all that, thanks for watching. Love you all. I'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.
He took my thing.